All right, first, I want to say sorry for the time between these. I got to writing this episode, but found that the topic just led into so many other ideas. So I had to cut this one down, and I'm going to organize those tangents that I wanted to go into their own topics and their own videos. But anyways, getting into the meat of this. When I was really young, my favorite games were, hands down, adventure games. Specifically, I loved the old Sierra adventure games, especially the early parser-based ones. I liked the point-and-click interface too, but nothing captured my imagination the way the earlier ones did. So I played endless hours of stuff like Space Quest, Police Quest, King's Quest, Manhunter, and Quest for Glory. Those were my favorites. And I assumed, that since, I mostly played adventure games, I was an adventure game fan. You play adventure games, you're an adventure game fan. And I had come across various people who liked adventure games, and, I found some fan sites. But it wasn't until, I think it was around 2012, when there was that Kickstarter rush, that I really ended up in any sort of, we'll say, large gathering of adventure game fans. And it was awesome. I met so many people who liked the same games as me, and I thought I had found my community, people who understood my tastes, finally, at last. But as we talked about our favorite adventure games, or discussed what we'd like to see from the latest Kickstarter adventure game, I started to notice some major differences. A large portion of the fan base hated, for instance, arcade sequences or mini games in their adventure games. They hated death or dead person walking scenarios. And they seemed really fixated on the idea that the most important part of an adventure game is the story. Now, of course, this is just a general observation, and it wasn't everyone, but the opinion was widespread enough to stand out to me. And, see, all the things they hated, I loved. See, to me, an adventure game needed the chance of failure. Sorry, needs, present tense. I still feel that way. Death needed to be present. I liked those possibilities for dead ends. Cutting yourself off from being able to complete the adventure added to the tension and the mystery of the game. Instead of seeing the game as just some linear experience, like some story you happen to be playing through, I saw the jumping back to earlier saves to try a different approach as sort of like time travel. And the game itself was a sort of like four-dimensional puzzle. Now, a little while later, that's when I started my Elder Scrolls Anthology Let's Play series. And I got into many discussions about RPGs and even eventually ended up making a video defining what a role-playing game was, which is, I think, still to this day is one of my favorite videos. I think I did a pretty good job at defining that. I'll be sure to leave a link. I gotta remember to leave a link for that one. Now, in one case, in one discussion that I had, once I started really getting into RPGs and talking about RPGs with people, I had made a comment about how RPGs were probably my favorite genre. And I was challenged on that, based on the fact that I'm not good at them, because I'm putting my gameplay up online and people can see it, and it's like, oh really, it's your favorite? Mm-hmm. I don't believe you. And it felt very, oh yeah? Well, name 3 songs. It's like, you like RPGs, name 3. It was kind of weird. But, being good at and liking something being different aside, those are two different things. It got me thinking, why do I love RPGs? I hate min-maxing. People ridicule how I play them all the time, and I'm obviously, quote-unquote, terrible. And well, the truth is, it's not RPGs themselves that I love. RPGs just happen to be a genre that is often filled with elements that I love in games. The same elements that I loved in adventure games, and some. So, I love, exploration. I love mystery. I love it when games obscure details so you don't quite know where its boundaries are. I love things that feed my curiosity. I love deep mechanics, not because I want to learn how to make the best use of them, but because the more complex they are, the more variable and unpredictable the game is. Making a choice in an adventure game and not knowing if I screwed myself over later is actually exciting to me. Feeling like danger is around every corner adds excitement to experimentation. I love worlds with lore because there's so much to poke around with. And it's why I would, come to learn that like old horror games are such a great fit for me. They're like these dangerous puzzles that you're playing in. There's always that sense of adventure. I kind of feel like that's one of the off branches from the adventure genre that I didn't really follow, but I'm kind of looping back onto and re-experiencing, because I'm like, oh, this is kind of my thing. I like this. So like those hours playing adventure games, a lot of that was just walking around the world and seeing what was possible with the parser. That's why I like the parser. The open-ended nature of the text parser, where you could actually just type in what you want to do rather than having to use defined actions. The open-ended nature of that in those early adventure games was just another frontier for exploration. Now, technically, it would be just as limited, and in a lot of cases, it was just as limited as, we'll say, the point-and-click interfaces. But it did allow you to play with like the verbs and stuff that you would use, and in some cases led to some Easter eggs. Enough so that it added that element of mystery, like, oh, maybe there is something hidden here. Even within the we'll say the recesses of the game itself. Being able to play around with the parser was just something else to dig into. And, of course, there's other things I value in games. For instance, coming from a very sheltered religious home, where I had a lot of my behavior and, life dictated to me, being able to make characters that reflected me, gave me an outlet to express myself. So I kind of worked gaming into ways I coped and expressed myself with friends, and the world. Which, again, is another element that RPGs gave to me. I also tend to like games without ends. I like the idea of building things up, being able to create my own sort of long-running story. Something I can play in like a sandbox. Again, something RPGs tend to give me, but also one of the big reasons I love big strategy games. I got into Arma for the same reason I got into like Distant Worlds universe. These big, complex, slow, like mechanic-heavy games that I can sink hours into crafting my own story. And satisfy my curiosity. There's endless moving parts, and then you have like Arma, for instance, with the editor. Like I could create all these different scenarios and play around with those and see how different elements interact with each other. And it was slow. I have to emphasize the slowness. I liked that. Like when in my Distant Worlds playthrough, I even on my own, I don't like to fast forward. I don't like putting higher speed. I put it on the lowest speed and just let it go. And because I don't know, there's a certain something about that is appealing to me. Just being able to look at all the little pieces moving and figuring out where they're going. That is fascinating to me. So like if I were to sum up what I look for in games, I'm not sure if I can break it down too much there, but I like complex, free-form games with no end, with plenty of customization. I want to be free to put my mark on a world that doesn't revolve around me. I love the unknown. I love it when game systems are so complex and deep that it kind of becomes unpredictable. But it should feel like given time, it will be possible to understand and predict. So yeah, the more of those boxes a game ticks, the greater chance I'm going to love it. Anyways, what's the why? Why look at this? Aside from understanding myself and my own taste better, I think it's helpful to consider what we actually value in games. We all enjoy a lot of the same favorite games, but often for very different reasons. And if you understand what elements you enjoy most in games, it's easier to know if something might appeal to you. Like I know what things to listen for in reviews now. When I'm reading a review, I'm like, okay, I know what elements I like. These are going to be the things these are going to be the keywords I'm looking for. I don't care about the number score. I just want to see if you touch on any of these elements that I like. And it can also help when you're trying to recommend games to others. Like I've recommended games to people and they're like, I don't like this. And I'm like, but why? You seem to like all this other similar game. And it's because, it might have one little element, one certain thing that they prioritize, that this other recommendation does not tick that box. And as a result, it's a game they should love, but they just don't care about. So I think it's a little bit of being aware of yourself and trying to understand what other people like, more like a little bit on a little bit more of a granular level than just like, oh yeah, I like RPGs. Like, why? Because as you can see, like, there's a lot of games that can match these criteria. Like I like Metroidvanias, not as much because it doesn't tick as many of the boxes, but they do have that central element of that exploration, that curiosity. Like, what is there? Once I've got things figured out, it does kind of start to become boring to me. So it's not at the top of my list of favorite things, of favorite games or experiences to dive into, but it's something that I like and a reason I like it. And by identifying this element rather than just the genre I like, it helps me sort of understand more things I like. So like, I'll look at a racing game now and say, okay, well, do you have any of the elements I like? And it's possible that a racing game or a sports game even could have things that will just pique my curiosity in just that right way. And even though I might not be a huge fan of those genres, I will at least consider them now with the lens of what it is that I like. And you know, like I said, like not everyone likes the same things from games. And actually, this gets me thinking about stuff like difficulty settings again. And maybe that's a topic I'll revisit in the future. But anyway, saying this all out loud, it sounds obvious. So much so that I debated if I should even bother making this video. I'm like, this is like, I'm gonna come out to my audience and just be like, the sky is blue. Like, it doesn't need to be said. But I think that sometimes we think of things just passively. It's like, even if you've thought about this, even if you know this, and even if you might know it, like sometimes until we actually like break it down, like we don't take advantage of that knowledge. It's like we know something passively, but until someone points it out, you're like, oh wait, you're right. And then it's like all of a sudden it's like knowledge you've always had, but now you're aware of it and you can make use of it. And so I was like, you know what, ultimately, like, it's an obvious thing, but obviously I had a eureka moment myself with it. So it's possible that maybe, you know, someone else will have a eureka moment. So I'm just throwing that out there. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about, you know, like why we play games that we play. You know, if you liked this video, you know, give the video a thumbs up. If you didn't, leave it a thumbs down. If you have any suggestions for future videos or comments about what we talked about in this video, like what elements, can you identify what elements you like in games? And maybe, hey, is there a genre that element has appeared in a certain game that you wouldn't think it would? Like, go ahead, let's share that in the comments. Yeah, just drop them down, type them up, put them in the comment section down below. Do you have an aspect of games that you enjoy that differs from what the majority of fans of a game is? Do you have an aspect of games that you enjoy that differs from what the majority of fans of the game like? And what is it? There we go. I think I can talk, I promise. So yeah, and if you like what I'm doing and would like to support me, you can check out my Patreon and you'll get access to some patron exclusive videos as well. I've got actually quite a bit of a library of those built up right now. Currently, it's mostly all Fatal Frame. There is some other things in there, but it's mostly you know, some horror stuff. But I'll be putting more things in there as well. So you can always check that out. Yeah, until next time, I would like to ask you all to game on.